This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened.
The 911 system was designed to help save lives by speeding up the response time in an emergency. On July 14th, 1990, in New Brunswick, New Jersey, one young boy learned its real value for the first time.
911. There is a song that's called 911 is a Joke. On July 14th, beginning my shift, I got 2 crank calls. Play on the phone. Yep. You get angry sometimes. You try to call them back and explain to the parents that 911 is not a joke and 911 is not to be played on.
At 2:51 p.m., Rosa Natal got a third call from a child.
911. I'm playing. Please, will you stop playing on the phone? Are you playing on the phone? No. What do you need? I need one ambulance, please. You need an ambulance for what? Because my mom is sick.
I was going to hang up, but I said no.
Where's your mom now?
She's in the kitchen.
She's in the kitchen?
Uh-huh.
And what's your name?
Patrick.
Patrick?
Yep.
What floor do you live on?
What floor do we live on?
Private home.
It is a private home.
Private home. Okay, Patrick, we'll send somebody over, okay?
Okay.
The turning point in that call was when I asked him, what floor did he live on? When I heard his mother yell out, it was a residential home. That's when I realized Patrick's call was legit. It's not a prank.
EMTs Steve Pavlik and Michael Calabrese responded to the call.
We were dispatched for an unknown medical. We responded to the call with lights and siren because we weren't sure what we were going for. It could be a number of things.
I knew my mother needed help quick, and I had to dial 911 because if I didn't, my mother wouldn't even get no help. And when I saw the ambulance coming, then I did this. And then they parked, and so I showed them where my mother was.
What's wrong? All right.
Within 4 minutes of 5-year-old Patrick Hammond's call for help for his mother, Joan, EMTs arrived on the scene.
The patient appeared very sick. She was very sweaty, vomiting. I began to get the history from the patient, and my partner began to assess her vital signs. I was gathering up the medicines to try and ascertain what kind of medical history she had. We found out her blood pressure was elevated. With her blood pressure being that high, the patient may be having a stroke.
I want you to breathe real nice and easy for me.
We determined that her condition was critical and that she needed a rapid transport to the hospital.
A neighbor, Sister Rose, who saw the ambulance, came over to look after Patrick and his younger brother, Matthew, until relatives could be reached.
When the paramedics took my mommy, my brother Matthew was scared, but I told Matthew that, Matthew, my mother's gonna be all right. And when we saw the ambulance leave, then we both started crying. because we never left the mother like that. We really loved her.
We're inbound 48-year-old.
Throughout the 5-minute ride to the hospital, 48-year-old Joan Hammond drifted in and out of consciousness. Rescue workers were still not certain what was wrong with her.
1, 2, 3.
Cardiologist Mahmoud Qureshi was brought in.
When I examined her in the emergency room, I found that she was drowsy, almost unconscious. Her blood pressure was extremely high, 260/170.
As Joan's condition continued to deteriorate, Dr. Qureshi ordered a CAT scan to try and pinpoint the cause of her symptoms.
The worst case scenario is that the patient goes deeper into coma and finally dies. At the lower levels of the brain, there was no evidence of any damage or hemorrhage, but as we came up towards the cerebral cortex, or the main brain, we found that these ventricles were found full of blood, indicating that there had been a rupture of blood vessel in her brain.
Joan had suffered a severe hemorrhage too deep within her brain to be operated on and repaired.
During those 48 hours, she was hanging between life and death, but we treated her with medications, intravenous medications, to bring her blood pressure under control.
Can you squeeze this one?
Joan responded surprisingly quickly to treatment. Within 2 days, she was conscious and even speaking again.
It's overwhelming, the fact that your child has saved your life. But thank God that day the children were there. If he hadn't made the call, I don't know where I would be now. I feel that I'm well blessed to have these children.
I'm glad to see you guys.
After 3 weeks, Joan was released from the hospital. Though she continues on blood pressure medication and physical therapy, she suffered no permanent damage as a result of the ruptured artery in her brain.
I remember driving up to my mom's house, and Patrick was in the driveway. And he just ran out to me in the car and just cried out, "Mom, you're home, you're home." That was special.
When I saw Mommy, and then I jumped up and I went in the house and told Grandma, and I was so excited, and I said, "Grandma, my mother's outside. She's outside in the car."
Yeah, I think they're looking for a little food, but you guys gave it to the deer. Every parent needs to make their children aware that it's not something that you fool around with. It's a matter of life and death. While they're fooling around making a crank call, there might be someone else that can't get a call through. No one ever knows when it's going to be their turn. On July 14th, it was mine. And I'm just grateful to be here.
Next,
we had a very, very dangerous situation there. We had a mother bear who had been chased all over the city for a good 2.5 hours, and she was sitting on top of an electric pole, and at any time she could be electrocuted.
Most of the footage in this story was taped in Albuquerque, New Mexico, beginning on August 14th, 1989, shortly after Lenore Gottlieb woke up.
I went to the back door, and I looked out. I said to my daughter, "Mara, there's a bear in the backyard." And she didn't believe me. She said, "Mom, what did you say?" And I said, "There's a bear in the backyard."
At 7 a.m., a call came into the Animal Control Center reporting a bear sighting. Worried about the dangers of a wild bear in the middle of suburbia, Animal Control and police officers were dispatched to the bear's last known location.
The chase proceeded back and forth through the neighborhood, in and out of backyards, across streets.
That animal was very, very agile, very powerful animal. They could climb over any wall that was there.
We'd lose her for a while and then we'd spot her again. At one point, she was running along in front of me and kind of just looking over her shoulder at me, and really didn't appear to be too bothered by me at all. And my first thought was, why am I chasing this bear? What am I going to do if this bear stops? She finally climbed up onto a roof of a house.
Department of Game and Fish Officer Richard Size was also sent to help with the capture.
My first concern was for the safety and welfare of people that were gathering around and seeing that the bear was not going to be injured. I had already prepared a dart for the tranquilizer gun and shot the bear while it was on the roof of the house.
After the dart went into the bear, we were able to keep good track of the bear at long distances. We did not want to razz the bear in any way, shape, or form. We just wanted it to calm down and let the drug take effect.
She's, yeah, I see her. Get her. There it is. So come this way. Not be in traffic. Bring over the fence. Okay, let's go straight up.
And the one thing I was noticing that the drug was not taking effect.
Various officials chased the bear through the city for more than 2 hours.
She finally got to a point where there was a real high wall that she couldn't get over, and we had her blocked on 3 sides, and it was natural instinct. She went up the pole.
I pulled up probably within seconds after it hit the pole. We had a very, very dangerous situation there. We had a mother bear who had been chased all over the city for a good 2.5 hours, and she was sitting on top of an electric pole, and at any time she could be electrocuted. Our idea was to try to keep her on top, as far on top as we could, until we could get the power turned off.
Officials feared the bear might come in contact with a live transformer, so an emergency call was placed to the power company.
Public service may help you.
To turn off power is not really all that easy. There was 12,470 volts running through that line. If we just turn the power off, it could turn hospitals off, it could turn police departments off. We were trying to locate where can we turn the power off without affecting a large block of the public.
When we continue.
And you could see her trying to hang on with her front paws, but there was like no strength in her grip. She was going to sleep, she was letting loose.
More and more people started to filter in and getting closer and closer to the bear. Our job, too, was to make sure that no one was going to be hurt.
At 9:30 a.m., Richard Size caught up with the bear again.
These animals are large carnivores, and their natural behavior is to be afraid of humans. However, when they're in a strange situation where they are trying to get away from humans, there could be some conflicts and potential for injury to both the bears and the humans.
We weren't sure if electricity could ever be cut off because of the size of this electrical equipment. Officer Sice then had to make a decision, which I do concur with.
I felt it would be best to bring that chase to an end as soon as possible. I never dreamed at the time that I was looking up at that bear and deciding to pull the trigger that the outcome would be what actually did happen.
We knew it took a long time for the drug to take effect. We figured we had quite a bit of time. Within minutes, the bear started to become groggy.
She turned around and started trying to come down the pole, and you could see her trying to hang on with her front paws, but there was like no strength in her grip. She was going to sleep, and she was letting loose. The transformer blew her off of the pole, maybe 30 or 40 feet above the ground.
That was probably the worst thing that could happen, and as fate would have it, it did happen.
It hurt quite a bit. We had put a lot of effort into trying to take her in a good, healthy state. We knew she was in very bad shape.
The critically injured bear was taken to the local zoo for treatment under the care of veterinarian Brett Snyder.
There was a real concern on our part of whether attempting to save this bear would really prolong its suffering or whether it was going to had a chance to really make a recovery. We didn't know if she was even going to survive. By having it under pain medication, we were able to find the bear could walk, could get up and walk in a limited way, and it was eating. It was taking a few bites of food. So then we decided to start our hands-on examinations. The bear was starved out. It was very thin. There were no obvious fractures, no broken bones. And at this point is when we discovered the extent of the burns on the back of both hind legs. The skin was destroyed and the underlying muscle tissue was just burned and destroyed very deep into the legs.
Just down the hall from the injured female was a young cub who had wandered into Albuquerque the day before. Officials suspected that the adult female bear had come into town to find a lost cub. Game and Fish Officer Scott Brown was looking after both bears.
The next few days after we captured this particular female, we had several other bears wander into town. And so we weren't really sure which one was the mother of this cub.
A long-term drought was forcing wildlife into the city for water.
Our first step was to take the cub in a cage and place it right next to the room where the injured mother bear was in, and to watch their reaction.
Mama's over this way.
And the cub began to, there's no other way to describe it, but bawl. And at first the mother would stay across the room. And then eventually the mother would come up and sit right next to the door. And the two of them would be where they could smell each other, where they could see each other, and to a certain extent where they could feel each other because the cub was reaching out through the bars of the cage. And we said, we think we've got the right mother and the right cub and we can put them together.
But the reunion would have to wait. The mother was still in critical condition, too weak to care for a cub. 2 months later, they finally felt she was strong enough to be reunited with her baby.
But there was still a long ways to go to get them back in the wild where they came from. Every day there was slight improvements over the day before.
By October, the bear had healed enough to be moved to an outdoor compound for the winter. Mother and cub were strictly isolated from humans to maintain their natural wildness. 8 months after their capture, both bears were sedated for one last time for their trip back to the wild.
I think as far as her physical well-being, she's strong enough. She can climb trees, moves around, she has normal behavior. She's very lucky, I think, that she could take that kind of a shock and walk away from it.
Sleep in there for a while? Yeah, and we'll get our hour.
Both bears were tagged, and the mother was fitted with a radio collar so they could be tracked after their release.
The next thing is going to be, will the release be a success? Will she go back and mind her own business and become a bear? And that's still the big question.
The bears were taken to a secluded area in the mountains above Albuquerque. Only a handful of people were invited to witness what officials hoped would be the bears' last contact with humans. Game and Fish Officer Richard Size got the chance to set them free.
Ready.
Wildlife and people have to interact in some way at some time. And unfortunately, when that interaction, when that conflict happens, too many times it's a wildlife that gets the short end of the stick. We had a situation that had turned basically into our worst nightmare. And now we could say that the nightmare is over. And I only wish that everybody that showed concern for that bear, that everybody that heard about the bear and felt some kind of loss when it was injured the way that it was injured, could experience in that same victory, that same feeling of accomplishment, and that same feeling that all right, something's back free and wild and forever.
We all depend on the quick thinking and bravery of professional rescuers to help us when we're most in need. This series is dedicated to all the men and women who risk their lives to save the lives of others. I'm William Shatner. Join us again next week for more true stories on Rescue 911.
Step out of the car,